course, if you're new here or if you're old, my name is Franco Panizo, the co-host, creator, founder of Miami Total Football Radio, the show. Normally, I am joined by somebody, but everybody's schedule this week is very hectic. There's a lot going on for everybody. As you can probably tell over the last few weeks, months, we haven't been as consistent as we would like here on Miami Total Football Radio, the show. But yeah, everyone's schedules, including mine, but not so much mine, but still mine. They're busy. They're busy. So unfortunately, we haven't been as consistent as we would like. I would hope to change that, for this final stretch run of the 2025 campaign, the playoffs, and hopefully we can fine tune that and address that in 2026. So apologies for that. But yes, this will be a solo episode. Yours truly on his own. And I've had to adjust the YouTube because for some reason there was two links and the one I deleted apparently was the YouTube one. So I had to delete the one that was not in use and now I had to redo it. I don't know. But anyway, for those of you tuning in, we will be talking Inter Miami's match against FC Cincinnati, the Eastern Conference semifinal showdown this Sunday, not Saturday, as has been the case for practically every Inter Miami regular season and playoff game so far. It will be Sunday at 5 o'clock. So make sure you circle your calendars and you don't forget. You don't forget. Before we get to the playoff game, before we get to Lionel Messi, before we get to Luis Suarez and his role, whether he should be a substitute or a starter, we're going to talk, of course, about the news that came out today. So we will start here on this episode with the Inter Miami schedule for 2026. Yes, the 2025 season is not even over yet, but we already have the 2026 schedule. And there you have it, right there in front of you. A nice big graphic. As you can see, a lot of road games to start the year. Obviously, the gray ones are the road games. Pink ones are the home games. Now, well, you can see that Inter Miami has a 5 game stretch of starting the season on the road. The sixth game has a special image, a special graphic. And why is that? Well, that's because that is the expected opening of Miami Freedom Park against Austin FC on April 4th. So the new stadium, the new soccer-specific stadium being built in Miami-Dade County will be opened or is scheduled to be opened officially on April 4th of next year. So circle your calendars. You now have a date to look forward to. We'll go back to the schedule in just a moment to give our initial thoughts. But obviously the big day, as far as Inter Miami and the new stadium is concerned, is April 4th. Now, Inter Miami, to coincide with Major League Soccer releasing its schedule much sooner than it normally does, well, Inter Miami invited media out to Miami Freedom Park today to see the venue, to see the work in progress. Stadium obviously still not done, but it's getting closer and closer. Now, of course, part of this from Inter Miami is to help sell tickets for next year. Of course, as you can see in the Inter Miami social tweets, the posts out there, they're pushing season tickets for anybody that wants to join in on the excitement. I heard earlier today, actually, while we took a tour of the venue, that if you want the expensive seats, like the midfield seats on the nicer side or the side that I guess won't get hit by the sun as much, which would be the west side, as it is now at Chase Stadium. Apparently, some of those seats, if not all of those seats, or a lot of those seats, require a 3-year contract or agreement. So if you're a fan and you want to get season tickets in the nicer area on the west side of the venue, you're going to have to agree to do so for 3 years. They're trying to make sure that the novelty doesn't wear off after 1 year. If you're coming to an agreement on that west side, be ready to pay a pretty penny, and to pay that pretty penny for several seasons. But anyway, speaking of the tour today that Inter Miami gave us, we're going to show you guys some images. Now, I will warn you, aquí está el aviso, in English and in Spanish, it's pretty loud. All right, so I give you guys 5 seconds to put the volume down. Get ready, brace yourself, because this is live. That's live, but this was, in the moment. There's no production to this video. It is just the video that was taken from inside the venue where construction is still happening. So there's going to be a lot of background noise. So first, I'm going to show you guys the seat level that we saw today. Then I'll show you the field level. If you're listening to this instead of watching this on YouTube or Twitter or Facebook, you might want to skip through the next 33 seconds because you're just going to hear a whole lot of noise. One of the limitations to doing audio video podcasts. So, all right. I think that's enough time for you guys to put the volume down. Here we go. This is what the stadium looks like from inside as of, what's today's date? November 20th. So as you guys can see, a lot of construction still being done. You saw some of the workers there, not us that were in the, the pink pennies and the vests and the pink Inter Miami hard hats, but you saw a lot of actual workers who are putting in the grind, long hours to try to get this venue done in time by April 4th. I think that's ambitious on my part, just my opinion. But Inter Miami is full steam ahead, and they're trying to make it happen. And right now, it looks like it will happen. We'll see. I've seen stadium projects built, and sometimes there are delays or something happens along the process that pushes things back or makes teams have to alter their plans. But right now, the plan is for April 4th. Obviously, you can see a much more initial. Of course, we've seen the renderings, right? We've seen images from afar. You guys might have seen videos out there on social media from the outside, maybe a couple videos from the inside because there was a tour not too long ago. But the initial impressions here from Miami Total Football Radio is that it looks like a much more proper football stadium, right? It looks much better than Chase Stadium, as quaint as Chase Stadium can be, as the charm that it has, especially since it's where Inter Miami first began, even before Messi. Obviously, this looks much more well done. Now, obviously, it's not finished yet, but from the looks of it, it looks like, of course, it will be a more fitting and proper and appropriate home for a team like Inter Miami, which, again, will have Lionel Messi on the roster next year when they open the doors to Miami Freedom Park. I do have one, I'm not going to say complaint, but one criticism, and that's that I'm not a big fan of this bowl. And I know, again, we've seen the renderings, but not a big fan of the bowl seating arrangement. Now, the explanation was that it's meant to hold in the noise because there's going to be a canopy that protects you guys, the fans that attend, from the elements. So if it starts raining, most of you will be covered for the most part, and that also will help any noise that's in the stadium stay within the stadium in large part, because you'll have something over you that the sound will reverberate off of. Whereas Chase Stadium, it's open air across the board pretty much. So anytime you're chanting, it just kind of goes up into the air. I'm not a science expert, but pretty basic in terms of stadium construction and engineering. But I'm not a big fan of it because I don't think it's going to make for the most intimidating atmosphere. I don't know if it's going to make it might make for a loud atmosphere, and maybe that's where you hope that you can build your fortress at home. I don't know if it's going to be super intimidating for the opposition. There's other stadiums that you see around the world where the stands are más inclinados. They're more on top of the field, on top of the action, which makes for a more intimidating feel for the opposing team, especially when they're being jeered and booed. Of course, within reason. Don't want to go too far with that, but I think that's the one criticism I could have. But we'll look at the stadium from field level. I see some comments coming in about the prices. We will get to that here in just 1 second. Let's look at the stadium from field level. This is where Lionel Messi will be scoring goals in 2026. This is where his teammates will be scoring goals in 2026 and beyond. Again, give you guys about 5 to 10 seconds here to lower the volume because, again, there's some background noise. There's cranes. There's a lot of stuff happening. A lot to take in. You'll get a good look of the canopy here that they have yet to install, but they plan to install. We were given a whole, I don't want to say lecture. We were given a whole informative chat about how the canopy is the Messi of stadium engineering because it's not cheap and it's not easy to pull off. That's what we were told. I'm just relaying the information. Whether that sounds extreme or extravagant or a little bit extra, I'll leave that to you guys. But let's take a look here. Giving you guys enough time to lower the volume. Again, if you're listening and not watching this, maybe skip through the next 29 seconds. But here we go.
So the crane is part where you want to take it, which is what Messi signed at the table, but this is what we're talking about. So we just talked a little bit about the canopy from atmosphere and fan community from a consultant standpoint. I think the Sun Holiday to environment.
So there you go. Some sights and sounds from inside Miami Freedom Park. It's an update. It's not the most glamorous update. There will probably be better updates as we get closer to the spring of 2026, where it looks like more of a finished product. But I mean, it's come a long way from just being an idea to now being something tangible that you can actually see and touch. And we walk through the staircases, and of course, there's no lighting and or very limited lighting. And some of the walls still need to be finished. It's a lot of work still being done. From my understanding, I believe there's a lot of hours being put into this by large crews working very long days to try to get this done. Good thing for Inter Miami that helps its case to get it done in time is that the weather here doesn't get too poor in the winter, right? So it's not blistering cold outside like it would be in a lot of other cities like, I don't know, Minnesota, New York, where it's tougher to work in those environments just given the conditions. Here, we have pretty mild winters, if you could say it that way. So they'll be able to work through November, December, January, February, March, hopefully pass all the inspections, pass everything they need to do, and April 4th, the targeted date. We'll see if Inter Miami can make good on that. If they don't, I imagine they'll play at Chase Stadium for a game or two until things get wrapped up and done. Boss Daddy 85. I think it's the first time I've seen Boss Daddy comment, and I assume it's a he. So Boss Daddy says, yeah, the links are goofed. I was waiting in the other lobby like an idiot. You are not an idiot, my friend. That was some StreamYard / Franco Panizo blunder here in the pre-production of the episode. Mike V says, I didn't renew my season tickets because I refused to pay the atrocity of a price they are trying to charge. It is a scam. Mike V adds, they wanted a 3-year commitment from me for my current seats. Chase Stadium, section 116, first 3 rows currently. They wanted $22,000 for 4 seats. He added that later for 4 seats. I mean, look, there's a range of people in all walks of life. No different at Chase Stadium, but $22,000 for soccer seats. That is a huge number. That's a lot. That's a lot. That's all I can say. I mean, if you're Jorge Mas, maybe it's not a lot, but even if you're well off, I think that's a big number. I get it. The stadium's not cheap. Having Messi's not cheap. And you want to put a premium on it, on the excitement, but come on, man. Football is the game of the people, right? This is why it's so popular worldwide, because it's a game that you can play in any societal class. You don't need much to play soccer. You just need a ball, or you can make a ball out of paper if you need to. You can put 2 stones or 2 water bottles or 2 backpacks or 2 shirts as your goal. And it's super simple and easy and economical to play, right? 22,000 seems like it's too far gone from what the game is at its base, at its foundation. L.10.y says capitalism equals cannibalism. King Callum says, what is this rage bait title? Franco laughing emojis. We'll get to that. Giuseppe Verdelli -Chi 3K Messi la bellezza del calcio. Okay, all right. So we've got a bunch of comments. Boss Daddy, it's going to be pretty badass. I like the canopy. Okay, well, you saw some of the stadium. Let's quickly go back to the schedule very quickly. And again, guys, normally I don't like doing this on my own because it's a lot harder to do so. I have to try to look at the comments, try to get everything clicking, think about what I'm saying. Not the easiest. So if this is not the best episode, apologies, but maybe we'll have a little more peace. We won't have so much back and forth, so much debating and arguing and fighting, which we tend to have when Jose, Armando, Andrea Llanes, Simon Evans sometimes, Alonso Contreras, all the other usual co-hosts. So it'll be a calmer episode, probably a much more peaceful episode. I don't know if that makes it better or worse, but alas, maybe some people want to hear this type of show, or maybe some people like the other type of show. We'll blame Stephen A. Smith for making debating a trend in talk show radio here in the United States. All right, here's the 2026 schedule. Again, Inter Miami will start with 5 games on the road. The season opener against LAFC. That will be a rematch of Inter Miami's first ever season opener from 2020, when the South Florida side went over to City of Angels for the expansion campaign opener, which Inter Miami lost. Carlos Vela scored in that game. I was there in attendance. From there, Inter Miami plays Orlando. Quick Sunshine Classico, quick derby against the Lions. And that one is in Central Florida. I believe there's a trend of Messi having never played at Inter & Co Stadium, the venue in Central Florida. I think that's accurate. that something always comes up. Either he's injured or he's got international duty or something happens. Well, there should be no reason that he doesn't play if he's healthy in the second game of the season. So maybe Orlando, as a city, will get its glimpse at Messi in Major League Soccer at long last. From there, DC United, Charlotte, New York City, FC. So after that opener out west, you've got 4 games against 4 conference foes. I will say this, again, from having covered other stadium openings and the wonky, weird way that scheduling works to try to get you to your home opener. I can't remember if it was Kansas City or someone that many, many years ago played like 10 games away from home before they could play in their home opener at their new stadium, and it was rough for them. It was tough. Now, I don't expect Inter Miami to have as tough of a time, given that they have Messi and they should have a decent roster. So it should still be considered, one of the contenders, whether they're the contender or not. But they should still be one of the better teams in the league, at least on paper. So I imagine they'll be able to manage through it a little bit better, but it should still be a challenge. Consistently going on the road, not finding your rhythm at home until, again, April 4th against Austin FC. The following week, New York Red Bulls on April 11th. That's followed by another trip out west, and this one's maybe one you guys will plan for or should plan for. In a matter of a few days, you can double dip into 2 venues that I do not believe Inter Miami has ever played in. On April 18th, they face the Colorado Rapids. 4 days later, they head to Utah to take on Real Salt Lake. So 2 teams that I don't know if they've even ever played. From the top of my head, I can't recall. But they definitely have never played away to those teams, if my memory serves me correctly. So that might be a little road trip if you can swing one to maybe try to do, because you can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Not the nicest stadiums. They're not terrible, but they're not the nicest stadiums. But still, see something different than the norm for any other regular season. Anything else that stands out in this schedule? Ooh, yes. Well, there's a game on my birthday, May 13th, against Toronto FC away. But the game that I just looked at and I see is May 24th at Miami Freedom Park. The Portland Timbers come to town, and if everything that is true today stays that way, that means that one Phil Neville, former Inter Miami head coach, will be making his return to South Florida for the first time since he was fired right before the Messi era. And that means it'll be Inter Miami versus its former coach or their former coach. And I'm sure the storylines will be about how far Inter Miami has come since Phil Neville left. Messi arrived. There's a whole new stadium, a whole new project. But it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting. I'm sure Phil Neville, deep down inside, will really want to win that game. Good news is for you guys that are sick and tired of the Nashville matches that we saw, because we just saw 4 of those, Inter Miami's first game against that opponent will not take place until August 19th away in Tennessee. Anything else that stands out? A match away to San Diego on September 27th. That team will be in its 2nd year of existence. Might be a game to go check out. Not a game you'll see happen often just because of the way MLS is scheduled. Other than that, the season finale will be at home on November 7th against Charlotte FC. And just before we get away from the stadium talk, this will be the final MLS season, at least for now, that will be played from January to December. It was voted after our last show by the MLS Board of Governors that starting in 2027, MLS will switch its calendar to be in line with most of Europe's top leagues. So that means fall and spring as opposed to spring and fall. So it'll be 27 and 28 will be the full season for 27. I believe there's a mini tournament being played in the first half of that year. So this will be the last full season from January to or February to November, December. All right. We've talked about the stadium. We've talked about the schedule. Time to talk some soccer, some football. And before we look ahead, we've got to look back because that's just how I am. We should have had a show last week. I tried to make it happen. Nobody was able to jump on. I was reluctant to do it on my own. Well, my reluctance didn't pay off because here I am doing it on my own. But Inter Miami in the decisive game against Nashville SC prevailed in convincing fashion. A 4-0 victory for Messi and co. to win the series 2-1 and reach the Eastern Conference semifinals against FC Cincinnati. Again, we'll preview that game in just a moment, but Inter Miami with a very big win. I had predicted that they would win, that they would come out on top, that they would advance, but I did not think it would be that easy. And it was. And there was a lot of good things to talk about, a lot of positive aspects. I mean, I think every line for Inter Miami, the front line, the midfield, the back line, they all played very well in that decisive game. I don't think that there's, where in the second leg, it was tough to find players who held their own. In this one, it's hard to find players that struggled. Pretty much everyone got a passing grade. And it was one of the better wins for Javier Mascherano's side. A good response to what had happened in Nashville. A good response given that they admitted after this third game in the series that there were some ghosts from what happened last year against Atlanta that still lingered around the organization. There was still that kind of uneasy feeling in certain pockets. But they were able to push past that, and they were able to take care of business and avoid another shock elimination with a very convincing victory. We'll talk about the tactics because Javier Mascherano changed things up due to Luis Suarez's absence via suspension. But let's listen to Javier Mascherano here talking about practically what was a perfect night for Inter Miami at Chase Stadium a couple weekends ago.
Creo que bueno que el equipo hizo un partido casi perfecto, ¿no? No digo perfecto porque obviamente siempre hay cosas por mejorar, pero estuvimos en un nivel muy pero muy alto en todas las líneas, muy intensos desde el primer minuto, muy organizados y muy bien en la presión alta. La realidad es que nada, muy agradecido a estos jugadores porque bueno, más allá de que quizás el otro día nos fuimos con una sensación amarga en Nashville, entendimos a la perfección lo que nos jugábamos hoy, la importancia de poder poner al club en un lugar y en una fase que nunca había estado y bueno, y realmente han hecho un trabajo muy pero muy bueno.
Mascherano, for those of you that don't speak or understand Spanish, didn't really thump his chest. He just said it was almost a perfect night, that they performed well, that they knew what the game meant, and that they took care of business. Before we go back to that, because I see some comments here, and I'm a stickler for the details. Mike V says, it was with LA Galaxy. No. And Summer Sunshine 683 says, wrong, Inter Miami won against LA and many celebrities attended that game. So Summer Sunshine, I'm not going to be so nice to you here in my response. Inter Miami played way before Messi came. That game you're referring to against LAFC where Selena Gomez was in attendance, everybody, that was like 4 seasons into Inter Miami's existence. The actual season opener in the expansion campaign in 2020 was away to LAFC. Inter Miami lost 1-0. Carlos Vela scored a nice chipped goal over Luis Robles. That was Inter Miami's first ever game. Not that game that you're referencing. That happened many years later. Maybe for you and for the Messi fans, that was one of the first games of Inter Miami's existence because maybe that's when you started tuning in. But there's a whole Inter Miami story before Messi got here. So it was against LAFC 2020. I was there. It was right before the pandemic hit. They were supposed to play the following week again. No, they played DC United the second week in week 2 of the regular season campaign. Rodolfo Pizarro scored, but they lost. Roman Torres got the red card, and then that changed everything for those of you that were present in those days. And then they were supposed to come home to play the LA Galaxy in the home opener, and the pandemic shut everything down. But anyway, back to present day. Inter Miami against Nashville. Javier Mascherano went with a 4-3-3 formation. Now, if you recall, Luis Suarez was suspended due to his kick out on Andy Najar in the second game of this 3-game series. So without their number 9, Mascherano had to come up with an alternative solution. And he went away from his usual 4-4-2. He's pretty much been married to that 4-4-2 for 97, 98% of the season. And in this game, he went with a 4-3-3. Now, for those of you that tuned in to the last show a couple weeks ago, and this might be, jogging the memory there, but we shared a video, and I know I put this on Twitter. I'm pretty sure I did it on the pod as well. At the last availability, the last 15 minutes of practice that we had before that decisive game against Nashville, Mascherano did something that we never see in training. Like usually the 15 minutes that media gets to practice are all the same. Like players come out in the same way. Messi's always usually one of the last ones, and he's always flanked with either Suarez and now Rodrigo de Paul. But this time we saw a little bit different, right? They all came out. They did their initial talk. They did their warm-ups. And then right before they kicked us out, we saw Mascherano, and we've never seen this before, take some green pennies, some green chalecos, some green vests, and start laying them out on the field in essentially a 4-4-2 formation. Now, I mean, you'd have to be really gullible, real ingenuo to believe that wasn't them trying to BS publicly so that Nashville SC thought they were going to play one way, but they weren't. Which I think it was so obvious that I don't think Nashville fell for that, because obviously we put it out there. I put it out there that Mascherano put down the pennies, but I even put out, I'm like, is this just misdirection because they're going to do something else? And of course, a day later, they do something else. A 4-3-3. Messi was the false 9, so essentially he filled in for Luis Suarez. He was flanked by Mateo Silvetti. And I'm trying to think if it was Baltasar Rodriguez or Tadeo Allende on the other side. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. Might have been Tadeo. All the same, Messi in this game, he gets a brace. He gets an assist. He gets a secondary assist. He was as magical as you would expect him to be in the first half from just a football standpoint. I saw Messi, and guess this would make sense given where he was playing and the role he had to help fill. He was more of un definidor instead of a creador. He was more of a finisher than he normally is, when he normally is tasked with creating. He was still getting involved, still dropping back to get on the ball, but he was taking up higher positions. And that's why you see him, of course, open the scoring in the 10th minute, because he was not playing as deep as he normally does. He still had some of those responsibilities to drop back, try to link play, create from there. And in the second half, you saw him play more to his usual style with Inter Miami. But in the first half, saw him more like as a 9.5, we'll say. 9.5. Not quite a 9, but not quite a 10. It's a 9.5. He scored some good goals. Dario Allende also got in on the fun with a brace himself in the second half. Una noche redonda for Inter Miami. It was a 3-game series. They played Nashville 4 times in a row because the regular season finale was against Nashville. The whole scenario was very peculiar. Hopefully something that we don't see ever again, because there was definitely fatigue in terms of seeing the same game over and over and over again, even if all the matches were a bit different, because there were adjustments, right, on both sides. In the regular season finale, Nashville was the better team in the first half, and they had the lead, if my memory serves me correct. Inter Miami changed things. Nashville changed things in the second half. So there were adjustments made. And then Inter Miami blew Nashville out of the water and ended up winning 5-2. Then there's more adjustments made in the first game of the series, right? Because now Nashville is like, man, we just got blown out of the water. We need to fine-tune things. They come out with a different look. They look poor. They were not great in that first leg. Inter Miami wasn't great either, but they took care of business, and they win. I think it was 2-0. There's so many games. It's hard to remember them all, but I think it was 2-0. 3-1. 3-1. Sorry. 2-goal difference, but 3-1. Yeah, that's right. Ani Mukhtar scored at the end on a nice free kick. And the game back in Nashville. More adjustments being made. Nashville gets that early controversial penalty kick, and they're able to close the game out against an Inter Miami that was not that impressive. Inter Miami that was pretty poor on the day. Then in the decisive game, win or go home, Inter Miami cachetea at Nashville SC. I had said it before the game, and I shared it on Twitter as well. I had said it on the pod. Inter Miami had only lost to Nashville, I think, 1 in 10 times in the Messi era, heading into that decider. So I didn't see Nashville doing it again. I didn't see Lightning striking twice. Sure enough, Inter Miami took care of business. They're on to the next round. Toto Silvetti would look pretty good. Baltasar Rodriguez chipped in with what he could. Tadeo Allende again got a brace with a couple of good finishes, especially the chipped one there at the end, not the end, but midway through the second half, which pretty much capped the scoring. Nice little floated effort into the back of the net. So again, everyone pretty much played well. The backline gets the clean sheet. Rios Novo doesn't let a single goal get in. Good night for Inter Miami. And a night that they can build off of going into this weekend against FC Cincinnati. But of course, the biggest talking point, or one of the biggest talking points, is Luis Suarez is available again after serving his 1-game suspension. And with the way the team played, does he step back into his usual starting number 9 role this weekend? I think a lot of people that really follow the team would say he should not start. Because the way that Inter Miami played in this most recent game against Nashville, the 4-0 victory, the most convincing not only on the scoreline, but in terms of the performance, el rendimiento. You saw an Inter Miami that was more intense, that physically was better. They had more legs to them because they had younger pieces, as opposed to, in addition to Messi, another aging attacker who, even though he puts in his effort, because you can't say Suarez does not put in effort. You see that le cuesta. It's not easy for him, but you see that Suarez hustles and puts his, he runs his ass off as much as he can with the bad knee that he has. But obviously he's limited physically. Obviously Messi's not the most gifted physically. So when you have both of them up top, even if they press well in moments, it's not something you can sustain for large stretches. But with Matteo Silvetti, Baltasar Rodriguez, Tadeo Allende, Rodrigo De Paul, you saw a much more, I would almost say direct, but a much more intense Inter Miami, a team capable of covering more ground. Inter Miami pressed very well in this game against Nashville, this last game against Nashville. That's something that Mascherano was, he had glowing praise of. He threw a lot of flowers to the team in terms of their ability to press. So it seemed like he came away very impressed with that, which would make sense given that he is, as we know, a more defensive-minded head coach. To me, honestly, little parentheses, I think this is the type of Inter Miami you might see in 2026 going forward as Messi continues to get closer to 40 and he needs more energetic legs around him. I think what we saw against Nashville in this decisive game might be a glimpse into the future. But with regards to this weekend's game, should Luis Suarez be on the bench? He hasn't had the best of seasons. And I know people point to his numbers, which I will pull up here because that I definitely don't have off the top of my head. And I'll just give you his MLS numbers because if we go to all competitions, well, it's going to take me a lot of math being done here to be able to give you that. But right now in this MLS season, regular season, 27 starts and 28 appearances, 10 goals and 10 assists. Now, MLS counts secondary assists. So those numbers don't look terrible on paper. But if you take away the secondary assist and you factor in the physical limitations that happen when Suarez is in there, there's a strong case to be made that he should not start this weekend against an opponent that is of a higher caliber. Cincinnati is better than Nashville. This version of Nashville. Cincinnati will be a tougher test this weekend. And it is a win or go home match. You're playing away to Cincinnati. So there's no real room for error here. This is not a 3-game series where, hey, if you mess up, si la cagas en el primer partido, bueno, tienes otro. No, acá no existe eso. There is no second game. You either win on Sunday to keep your playoff hopes alive and reach the Eastern Conference Finals or final, or you're out. So the decision is a big one for Javier Mascherano. What do I think happens? I'm curious to hear what you guys say in the comment sections. I will start highlighting some of the comments in just one moment. Should Luis Suarez start? I would say he probably should not start, but realistically, he will. Realistically, given his understanding with Messi, given his stature, given su jerarquía, his know-how, I think it's would be very unlikely that Mascherano sits him. I honestly don't even know if Mascherano can sit him. Like if he's able to sit him, even if he wants to. Because when I asked Mascherano earlier in the year, much earlier in the year, about Luis Suarez continuing to get starts in a stretch where he wasn't playing that well and he wasn't scoring, The response that Mascherano more or less said, and I'm paraphrasing here, was he is a player that's important to this project. When this project began, he was deemed an important player. To me, reading between the lines, I can't take him out. Even if I want to, he has to start because he is a big piece of the project, not only outwardly to the public, but also internally. I don't know if there's something written in the contract. I don't know if, there's something there, but to me, it's clear that Javier Mascherano doesn't really have the ni voz ni voto, doesn't really have the authority to bench Suarez. So I think Suarez will start on Saturday against Cincinnati, and that will mean a return to the 4-4-2. That will mean a regression in terms of the physical abilities that you will have. You gain more football, maybe. Yes, we know again that Suarez and Messi pretty much can pick out where each other are without, with their eyes closed. Juegan de memoria. They have that understanding after playing together for so many years and their tight bond off the field. You hope, if you're an Inter Miami fan, that is the Suarez that you get this weekend, that you get the Suarez that combines well with Messi, the Messi that finds Suarez in good spots, and Suarez is able to just able to push the ball into the back of the net. Because if you get the other, if you get the other Suarez that we've seen this season, the Suarez that struggles with his balance, that struggles to get onto good passes because they're just, for his physical limitations, a tad bit too far for him to reach. The goalkeeper beats him to the ball, or he just can't make the angled run. Then that definitely will help FC Cincinnati's cause, and that will definitely not help Inter Miami's chances of advancing. Again, FC Cincinnati is a better opponent, a tougher opponent. They'll be playing at home in one of the venues, and I'm sure there will be some Inter Miami pink in, not only from maybe traveling contingent from here in South Florida, but the casual Cincinnati soccer or football fan that will go to see Messi play. I'm sure you'll see some of that, but by and large, when Inter Miami has gone to Cincinnati, it's been a very pro-Cincinnati crowd. So Inter Miami won't have that going for it. It is grass, it's not turf, so that we can put that aside, because I know Inter Miami's had its qualms about playing on turf this year. But the Suarez start is a big piece of the storyline heading in. Depending on how it goes, it will be a big storyline, likely, afterwards. I want to listen to Mascherano when he talked about the style after the game against Nashville, because that will help us dive further into this topic and into this conversation. We'll also get to your comments here in just one moment. So let's listen to Mascherano here.
De los jugadores y bueno, en el caso de Silvetti, de Tadeo, de Baltasar, sobre todo, nos han dado una dinámica al equipo para jugar este tipo de partidos. Es decir, el trabajo que hizo hoy de Baltasar jugando mano a mano con Naja, perdón, no me salía el nombre, fue de un desgaste bárbaro. Es decir, en muchos momentos él era el que armaba la línea de 5 para jugar con él, y después lo de Toto Silvetti, de meterse muchas veces como interior en ese espacio que dejaba Baltasar para después saltar con el central. Bueno, esa es la ventaja de tener jugadores inteligentes, con ganas y que están al servicio del equipo. Después Tadeo lo ha hecho durante toda la temporada. Creo que claramente a veces ha sido injustamente criticado por alguna que otra gol que ha errado, pero ha hecho un trabajo durante toda la temporada tremendo para el equipo, en defensa y en ataque, y bueno, trataremos de que así sea y así siga.
So Mascherano touched on Baltasar Rodriguez, Tadeo Allende, and Mateo Toto Silvetti. And he says he calls them all three intelligent players who are willing to give their all for the team, put the team first. He used the word dynamic, and I agree with that. I agree with that wholeheartedly. Inter Miami looked much more dynamic. And I think in large part just because they had more physical qualities, more energy on the field, like I mentioned before. They will lose some of that this weekend with Suarez's likely reinsertion to the starting lineup. That means you should have an option off the bench. I imagine it will be Toto Silvetti. I think the starting lineup is pretty clear. So if we want to quickly go over what we think it or what I think it will be on Sunday, I think you can do it de memoria. I think you can do it off the top of your noggin. Rocco Rios Novo in goal. Ian Frey as your right back. Maximiliano Peluca Falcon and Noah Allen, your two center backs. Jordi Alba, the left back. The double pivot, el doble pivote, the two central midfielders, Rodrigo de Paul, Sergio Busquets. Out on the right, you'll have Tadeo Allende. Out on the left, you'll have Baltasar Rodriguez. Up top, Luis Suarez with Lionel Messi behind him. I think it's pretty clear and pretty obvious. I would be surprised if Mascherano did anything else. Be surprised if Suarez doesn't start. I'd be surprised if they played the 4-3-3, even though they looked really good and probably had their best game in a bit. But I do think that Suarez gets the start. Let's look at some of the comments here. Junior Luipo says, we are cooked if Suarez starts. Cincinnati will punish us in transition. BossDad85 says, he's going to start, quotation, or air quotes. He's part of the project, air quotes. Justin-L9X8D, I think it's the first time commenting, says, if Miami wants to win, they have to bench Suarez. You need young legs. L.10.Y says, crazy thing is, the same people who don't want Suarez to start want Bright to start. Hypocrisy or bias. KTD says, Inter Miami won because Luis Suarez wasn't on the pitch. Thomas Fibbid, Suarez going to be Miami's downfall. We've seen it against Vancouver and Seattle. Let's see. Now we'll stop there. I mean, it's pretty much. I mean, it's most people. I think that again really follow Inter Miami think that Suarez should not start because they've seen the games and you see the limitations. But again, let's be fair to Suarez because again, his understanding with Messi is second to none almost. Maybe you could say Jordi Alba. But their understanding is very, very good, especially when they start combining in tight areas. Even when they don't forget Luis Suarez whipped in a delightful cross that Lionel Messi hit a diving header on the first goal in game 1, I think, of the series. It's a lot of games against Nashville, man. Sorry if I'm getting some of these details confused. I am a stickler for the details, but there were just so many damn games and so many goals, and it's hard to keep track of, especially when I'm on my own. If I got some of it mixed up, you guys are free to yellow card me. So again, we hope for Inter Miami's sake that they get the good version of Suarez. If they don't, it could be trouble. I do think the backline will be more tested. Nashville didn't really test Inter Miami in this last game. There was a moment early on in the second half where Nashville seemed to have scored, and there was a controversial foul called against, I think it was Sam Sturridge. Sam Sturridge. And yeah, he clipped Peluca Falcon. Peluca Falcon acted like he got shot, and the goal was called back because there was contact. Nashville obviously wasn't happy about that. To me, that really would have made a difference because Inter Miami was that much better. Nashville didn't put up much of a fight. Could it have changed the context of the game? Sure. But I tweeted this out and I'll repeat it here. It was as controversial and ticky-tack of a foul call as was the penalty kick on Rocco Rios Novo in leg 2. You win some, you lose some. You're not going to get them all. So it is what it is. Inter Miami was the better team from start to finish. But against Cincinnati, it'll be a higher level opponent. I think the backline gets tested. I don't see them getting another clean sheet. Honestly, I think for Inter Miami to have any chance to advance, it's what we know. El 10 tiene que estar encendido. Messi has to be Messi. He has to do Messi things. If he doesn't, if he has a subpar night by his standards, then I think Inter Miami might not make it through to the next round. If Messi does not play at a high level in a 4-4-2 with Luis Suarez out there, I don't know if Inter Miami gets past Cincinnati. Because again, the Inter Miami we saw without Suarez was more dynamic, but the Inter Miami we've seen with Suarez has been very inconsistent this year. Very inconsistent. Some games they're incredible, usually because Messi is incredible. But it's not usually because of some free-flowing soccer and some quality football. That's usually not the way Inter Miami wins games. Usually it's based off of an inspired Messi doing magical things with the ball at his feet, whether it's passing, whether it's shooting, whether it's dribbling. And I think they have a tough test. I think they have a tough test. This is a stat for you guys. This is a fact, and it's a good one. Messi has never scored on FC Cincinnati. Never happened since Messi has come to MLS. He hasn't played them a whole lot. He's missed a few games here and there for different reasons, but he has not scored on them. I asked Javier Mascherano about that earlier this year before they played Cincinnati twice in like 10 days. And Mascherano was like, oh, I didn't know that, but it's good news because that means that'll be something that Messi will surely use to motivate himself. Messi surely aware of that stat is what Mascherano said. But Messi didn't score in the 2 regular season games that they played this year. Cincinnati won the first game 3-0. They played 10 days later, I believe in South Florida. I think that's how the games went. And it was a 0-0 draw. Messi did play in those games. Crazy enough, the first one where Inter Miami loses 3-0, that's the match that ended Messi's streak of 2-goal games, right? If you guys remember in the summer, before and after the Leagues Cup in MLS play, Messi had a streak of 5 consecutive MLS regular season games where he scored 2 goals. And then that streak, historic streak, came to an end against Cincinnati. He has yet to score on them. I think he scores this weekend. I think that ends, stats and streaks are meant to be broken, or records are meant to be broken. Streaks are meant to be broken. I think he ends it. Will it be enough? Will it be enough? Will Inter Miami live to fight another day? Will they get one step closer to MLS Cup? I'm curious to hear your guys' thoughts. Because even Messi at a high level, I think gives you a great chance of winning, but I don't know if it definitely ensures that you win. Unless he's, out of this world Messi, which he can be, and we've seen it this year. We've seen it in his time here. But unless he's that Messi, I think Cincinnati has a good chance of winning. Like if Messi has a game where he gets a goal and an assist, I could see the defense giving up 3 goals and Inter Miami losing 3-2. I could see that type of match. So I could see a scenario where Inter Miami gets a good performance from Messi and still not enough on the night. My prediction is Inter Miami does not get through. I think we have seen them be too inconsistent especially against higher opposition, capable of hitting you in transition, capable of taking advantage of the lack of wheels you have in general on the field. And I think Cincinnati has what it takes, the know-how, the experience. They're not on paper more talented than Inter Miami, but I think they're the type of matchup that can cause problems. I think my prediction will be this time. Last time I said Inter Miami was going to win. I was convinced Inter Miami was going to win. I'm going to straddle the fence here. Again, if Messi has a Messi night, Inter Miami has a very good chance. If he doesn't, I think we might be looking at an elimination with a lot of reflecting to do heading into the offseason. It would also mean the final games of Sergio Busquets and Jordi Alba's careers. So we'll see the matchup on Sunday. It's 5 o'clock kickoff. Do or die game. So every play, every 50-50, every decision made will carry that much more weight, which is, the beauty of playoffs. Everything has a lot more meaning. So any bad pass, any mistake can really, really hurt you and gets analyzed ad nauseum. Sorry. Depending on how the results go. Let's see. Boss Daddy 85 says, I just received my new Suarez kit in the mail yesterday. I have faith. Is Boss Daddy 85 Uruguayan? Maybe. L.10.y says, seems like Suarez is a scapegoat created by media and delusional American fans. Meanwhile, scapegoat Suarez closing in on 20 goals and 20 assists, which none of the Inter Miami players have reached in their careers. KTD says Miami won't get through, but if Suarez doesn't play or doesn't start, then we have a chance. But the defense can still be a letdown. Miami-fan-IMCF. I think it's the first time getting a comment from he or she. It says, thank God this game is not at like 9:30 or 10 o'clock. It's at 5 o'clock in the middle of NFL Sunday, mind you. So curious to see how the numbers are. But at least in the United States, see how many people are tuning in. But yeah, different schedule. Let's see, anything else in the comment section? They're asking if it's cold in Cincinnati. It'll be 40 to 50 degrees at game time. Inter Miami will train, of course, the rest of the week, but they will have media availability for us to go ask questions again on Saturday, given that the game is on Sunday. So Inter Miami travels on Saturday afternoon. They had availability yesterday, Wednesday. Sergio Busquets, Alan Obando, and Fafa Pico all spoke. Congratulations to Fafa Pico and Haiti returning to their first World Cup in 50 plus years. I know this is going to come off, but look, man, it's a World Cup with 48 teams. Haiti might not have qualified had this not been that type of World Cup. But it is this type of World Cup. I do think it takes something off of qualifying. I don't see it as big of an achievement, but it is a good achievement for Haiti all the same, and they have every right to enjoy it. Fafa Pico will surely be hoping to take part in that tournament next summer here in the United States, Mexico, and Canada. I haven't seen any score predictions in the comment section. No one's putting their hand to the flame. Look, Inter Miami has confidence. They're coming back from the international break fairly healthy from what we know as of today on Thursday. Messi's back. He went on international duty with Argentina. Made a pit stop, by the way, in Barcelona to go check out the Camp Nou. Rodrigo de Paul in tow. Messi just walking around the streets of of Barcelona. Big game on Sunday. If Inter Miami gets through, boatload of confidence going into the Eastern Conference Final, knowing that they're within arm's reach of the MLS Cup Final. If I have to put a score on it, 4-2. Inter Miami loses 4-2. I don't think the defense can hold up. I don't think Rocco Rios Novo has another clean sheet performance. I think Busquets and DePaul, that combo, will have more work to do in the midfield, more space to cover. DePaul can do it. We know he can do it. Busquets, not really. I think with Suarez starting, again, you guys, Inter Miami loses a bit, and in that aspect, unless, again, Suarez is on his game up top, that's going to welcome positive moments for FC Cincinnati. We'll see. We'll see. They've got some dangerous players, man. They've got Brenner. I'm blanking. Oh, they've got Evander, who is the player to watch. He is their key man. Crushed it for Phil Double's Portland Timbers last year, and then said, "Get me out of here." Ends up at Cincinnati and makes that team much stronger. Cincinnati has creativity. They have experience. They've been together as a group for a good while now. This, the core, the foundation of that team has been together for a good bit. Their defense is relatively solid by MLS terms. And they have the ability, maybe not to the same level, but they have the ability to have moments of individual brilliance that can carry them forward. Tough task. Again, I think Inter Miami loses 4-2. Let's quickly go through some of the predictions here, and we'll call it a show. KTD says, my prediction is 3-1. Cincinnati goes through. Boss Daddy, who's been active and alive, a new active member here in the comment section. We'll take it. We like it. It's 2-1 either team. Usually these elimination games are pretty slow and defensive. I think things will open up late. I think once one of the teams has to start pushing, that obviously will lead to space in the back, chances, and goals. I think we'll see goals in this game. I think there's too much talent on both sides. I think there's too many questions at the back for Inter Miami. I think they will fall short, and I think that's when the real analysis, the real dissecting of what the roster needs going forward to build around Messi, I think that's when those conversations really start being had, at least publicly. Because behind the scenes, I'm sure there's already planning in place for next year. All right. That will do it for a solo episode. I've been talking for a long time. I don't know if you guys can tell or notice, but I don't have any water. And my mouth is getting pretty dry, so I'm starting to struggle a bit here. Nader 10LM says, Messi did play when they lost 3-0. I think he's coming to my defense because Summer Sunshine 683 says Messi did not play in the away game 3-0. I'm going to double check, but I looked at it before I started the show, and I'm pretty sure that he did play in that game because I asked Javier Mascherano about Messi having not scored yet, and it was on the 15th of June, which was just before the 3-0 defeat, which was on, July 15th, and they lost 3-0 on July 16th. And Messi was in the lineup, played 90 minutes. So, in your face, Summer Sunshine. That's 2 today, my friend. 2 that you've been wrong about today. Boss Dad 85. I expect the worst, hope for the best, not even nervous, numb. From all the years' previous failures, since he wins, hope they take the cup. I will say this, man, and I know that there's been a lot of talk in recent weeks about, not recent weeks, sorry, recent days about the schedule flipping in MLS. Something had to be done to address this gap, right? Because the energy, the buzz, the vibe about the playoffs completely dies out when there's this November window, international FIFA window that interrupts things. I mean, it's been 2 weeks since they've last played. A lot of focus has gone on international World Cup qualifying, who's in, who's out. And it just kind of takes the shine away from the MLS playoffs. So in that aspect, having the playoffs in May when there is no international windows, that helps tremendously. Obviously, there's going to be more games played in more cold weather in the northern markets, which is a concern. You're going to be playing in front of emptier stadiums, probably. What do you do in the winter break that will be had in December, January? I'm hearing that might be when Leagues Cup is had or held in warmer climates, in the United States. But that might be the time when it happens, because otherwise, where else do you fit it if you're going from fall to spring with a winter break in between? I'm hearing that's possible. Leagues Cup in that winter break in warmer climates. MLS clearly wants to have Leagues Cup, wants to continue Leagues Cup, continues to value it, regardless of what we think on the outside. So if you hear that news become official at some point, Leagues Cup in some point in that winter break, so that the teams are not just sitting around for 2 months, don't be surprised. Other than that, yes, L10Y says, did Andrea and Jose not show up because Honduras bottled the job? I'm not going to say that is the case, but I'm also not going to say that that's not the case. And I'm obviously smiling, which is fucked up on my part. But I had joked with them that they would be joining me as a Peruvian and a Peru national team fan, that they'd be joining me on the sidelines, not partaking in this World Cup. But yes, Honduras fell short. And if you don't know, I'll quickly share, and then we're calling it an episode. They were in first place of their group going into this final FIFA window. They lost unexpectedly to Nicaragua 2-0 in the first match. They then went to Costa Rica, where a win would automatically push Honduras or seal their World Cup ticket. They end up tying 0-0 against Costa Rica. Haiti wins its match, which meant Haiti leapfrogged Honduras in the standings and took first place. So they got the automatic ticket to the World Cup, as I mentioned earlier. Honduras still could have had a chance because they were in second place in their group. And they could have finished as one of the best 2 second place teams. But they needed other results to go their way. One of them was going their way. Suriname was losing 3-0 to Guatemala. That was enough to give Honduras a place in the upcoming playoffs for the final spots at this World Cup. In stoppage time, in the 93rd minute, a Suriname cross from the left is headed backwards in an attempt to clear the ball. The Guatemalan defender accidentally places it inside his own net. It's an own goal for Guatemala that crushes Honduras' chances of making the World Cup. Lo mató. Lo mató. That ended it because that gave Suriname the advantage on the third tiebreaker. Suriname didn't even celebrate the goal. I don't even think they realized in the moment what that meant. They just felt like they were losing 3-1. They felt like their World Cup hopes were done and dusted. But that goal was critical, crucial, pivotal, vital, importante. Suriname, due to that goal, was even on points with Honduras in different groups, the second place teams. They were even on goal differential as a result of that goal. Had that goal not happened, Suriname is a goal less. They don't make it. Honduras takes that second place spot. But because of that goal, they're even on goal differential. Suriname qualifies for the World Cup on the third tiebreaker. Goals scored, I think it was 9. Honduras had only 5. Heartbreaking for Honduras. It's a third consecutive World Cup that they will miss, if I'm not mistaken. Sad for Jose and Andrea. I was chatting with them via WhatsApp while the match was happening. I couldn't believe it. Pero son cosas del fútbol. Son cosas del fútbol. I mean, I've traveled to Qatar to go watch Peru in a playoff against Australia, and I've seen Peru lose on penalty kicks to not make it to a second consecutive World Cup. Like I said to somebody else, son cosas del fútbol. Part of soccer when you're at the bottom of the food chain. You're going to get some, you're going to lose some. That's how it goes. Unless you're at the top of the food chain, the Germanys, the Argentinas, the Brazils, France, unless you're at that level where you're going to consistently do well, but not always. Brazil hasn't won a World Cup in a long time. Argentina hasn't won a World Cup in a long time. England hasn't won, although, they're a bit overrated in my opinion. It's tough. It's tough. Cosa del fútbol. All right, we'll leave it there. Thank you guys for tuning in. BossDad85 will leave us with a final comment from the comment section saying that's an epic way to not qualify. Hey, man, look, the U.S. also failed to qualify not too long ago in 2018. Like, it happens, man. It happens. Italy hasn't qualified in the last 2. Could be the last 3 because they're in the playoff with Gennaro Gattuso. Sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit as their head coach. It's not easy, man. It's not easy to consistently be at that top level and consistently be at World Cups. It's just not. It's just not. And I know there's always deep dives into why failures to qualify happen. And I think, with good reason, you got to address what you do wrong. But sometimes I think it's just the way the ball bounces in a campaign sometimes your team just, you're not at that level. Sometimes you have bad luck, bad nights. Sometimes it can just happen. But what? All right. We will leave it there. Thank you guys again for tuning in. Thanks for listening to me talk and ramble and analyze and try to do my very best here. I couldn't go 2 weeks and not have a show. I could not go without previewing this game. I couldn't come back next week, win, lose, or whatever happens to Inter Miami and not have talked about La Maravilla that was that game against Nashville. Messi, monumental, magical as a false 9, and not preview this game against Cincinnati. I thought it would be unjust. I would like to have a show after every game. It's tough with the schedules. I'll work on it for 2026. Maybe I need to do some recruiting. Maybe I need to find a couple of more Inter Miami talking heads. If you guys have any recommendations, I mean, the community is kind of small, but any recommendations that maybe haven't popped in my mind, I'm free to hear it. But anyway, all right. I am Franco Panizo. Thank you guys for tuning in. Enjoy the game on Sunday, not Saturday. We'll be back next week. 1000% I will be here. If I do it alone, I'll do it alone again. But I'm sure, given the importance of things, others will be finding the time to tag along. So, again, thank you guys for listening to this episode of Miami Total Football Radio. Enjoy the game on Sunday. We'll see what's in store for Messi, Suarez, and Inter Miami. We will talk to you guys again, or I will talk to you guys again very soon.